Hey guys, tonight we're stepping far away from the familiar into a world of ancient empires and brutal warfare that predates modern notions of human rights or prisoner protections. We're plunging into the heart of ancient China, a land of vast armies, intricate strategies, and often unimaginable cruelty. And you, tonight, you're not a general, not a scholar, but a prisoner of war, captured on a distant battlefield, stripped of your identity, and thrust into the chilling reality of ancient Chinese captivity. Imagine the chaos of battle, the overwhelming terror of defeat, and the sudden crushing weight of your new, brutal existence. Honestly, if you showed up today expecting an international treaty or a prisoner exchange, they'd probably just laugh and hand you a shovel. You'd be lucky to even keep your clothes. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, tell me, where are you tuning in from tonight, and what time is it for you? I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just been part of a losing army, perhaps from the warring states of ancient China, a period of relentless conflict that stretched for centuries, or maybe from a Han Dynasty campaign against the nomadic Xiongnu. The memory of the battle is a blur, the clash of bronze and iron, the thunder of chariots, the desperate cries of your comrades. One moment you were fighting, the next, overwhelmed, disarmed, and dragged roughly to the ground. The victors, your new captors, are fierce, their faces grim, their language incomprehensible. Your uniform, your weapons, your personal effects, everything is stripped from you. You are no longer a soldier with a name and a purpose. You are simply a captive, a piece of spoils, reduced to your most basic, vulnerable self. The brutality of capture. The immediate aftermath of capture is a terrifying chaos. You are bound, often cruelly, with rough ropes that chafe your skin, or even with heavy iron chains that clang with every painful movement. You are pushed, kicked, and jostled into a growing throng of your defeated comrades, their faces reflecting the same terror and despair that grips your own heart. The air is thick with the dust of battle, the acrid scent of blood, and the pervasive smell of unwashed bodies and raw fear. You are no longer individuals. You are a collective mass of misery, destined for an unknown fate. The academic debate often explores the concept of total war in ancient China, particularly during the Warring States period, where the lines between combatants and civilians and the rules of engagement were often brutally blurred. Historians debate the extent to which mercy or quarter was given to captured soldiers, noting that large-scale executions or enslavement were common practices. For you, the prisoner, this means your very survival is a terrifying gamble, your future dictated by the whim of your captors. You might be forced to witness the summary execution of your officers, a brutal demonstration of the victor's absolute power. Their bodies, impaled on spears or beheaded, serve as a chilling warning. Any attempt at defiance, any sign of resistance, is met with swift, overwhelming force. You quickly learn that obedience, however grudging, is your only immediate hope of survival. The trauma of capture, the rapid descent from warrior to captive, leaves you in a state of shock, your mind struggling to process the abrupt and terrifying shift in your reality. The beginning of a new, grim existence. Your new captors, often soldiers from a rival state like Qin or Chu, are disciplined but merciless. They see you not as fellow human beings, but as defeated enemies, as property, or as raw labor. Their language, a harsh, guttural torrent, is incomprehensible, amplifying your sense of isolation and helplessness. You are given no explanation, no assurances, only rough commands delivered with the butt of a spear or the flat of a blade. You learn to interpret their gestures, their tone, understanding that your life depends on immediate, unquestioning compliance. An interesting, less commonly known detail about ancient Chinese captivity involved the practice of branding prisoners, particularly those deemed rebellious or intended for long-term servitude. A hot iron might be used to burn a symbol onto your face or body, marking you permanently as a captive, a former enemy, a piece of property. This served not only as identification, but as a visible badge of dishonor, stripping away your former identity and marking you for life. Imagine having a permanent, painful tattoo forced upon you, not as a choice, but as a brand of ownership. It's a dehumanizing act. The immediate aftermath of capture often involves being forced to assist in the grim tasks of the battlefield. You might be made to collect the bodies of your fallen comrades for mass burial, or to gather the weapons and armor of the defeated. This adds another layer of psychological torment, forcing you to confront the devastating loss and the utter finality of your army's defeat. You are a living testament to the victor's triumph, compelled to participate in the dismantling of your own side. As the sun sets, casting long, bloody shadows across the battlefield, you are herded into a makeshift holding area. Perhaps it's a hastily constructed stockade, or simply an open field guarded by armed sentries. The night air is cold, but you receive no blankets, no shelter from the elements. You huddle with your fellow captives, a mass of shivering, terrified bodies, silently enduring the hunger, the thirst, and the chilling realization that your life as a free man, as a soldier with honor, is over. Your existence has been abruptly reduced to a brutal, uncertain future, a mere cog in the vast, unforgiving war machine of ancient China. The unknown journey ahead. You try to find a comfortable position on the hard, cold ground, but sleep is impossible. Every muscle aches, your ropes chafe, and your mind races with terror and despair. What awaits you? Execution, enslavement, a life of forced labor in some distant, unknown land. The uncertainty is almost as unbearable as the physical discomfort. You hear the restless movements of the guards, their unfamiliar language a constant, unsettling presence. The sounds of the night are alien and terrifying, the cries of unseen animals, the distant howls of wolves, and the chilling silence that falls over the holding area as the guards shift their positions. You are completely at their mercy, vulnerable and utterly without recourse. Your identity, your past, your very humanity has been stripped away, leaving only the raw, desperate instinct for survival. As the first faint light of dawn begins to pierce the darkness, revealing the grim, exhausted faces of your fellow prisoners, you feel a profound sense of emptiness. Another day begins, but it is not your day, not your life. It is the beginning of a new, brutal existence, defined by chains, fear, and the chilling reality of ancient Chinese captivity. And as the sun rises, casting long shadows across the holding area, you prepare for the next unknown torment, your spirit clinging to the barest thread of hope for what little comfort or escape might come. The chaos of capture has subsided, replaced by the grim reality of your new status. You've survived the immediate aftermath of defeat, but now, as a prisoner of war in ancient China, your ordeal truly begins with the march of misery. This isn't a stroll through a picturesque landscape. It's an agonizing, brutal journey to enemy territory, plagued by relentless hunger, crushing despair, and the constant threat of collapse or worse. You are shackled, often to several other captives, forming a long, miserable chain. The iron bites into your wrists and ankles, chafing raw skin with every shuffling step. Your captors, the victorious soldiers of a rival state like Qin or Chu, show no mercy. They drive you relentlessly forward, often at a brutal pace, through dusty plains, over rocky hills, and across turbulent rivers. The sun beats down with unforgiving intensity, or the chilling rain soaks you to the bone, but there's no respite, no shelter from the elements. You are simply a resource, a burden to be moved, and your suffering is irrelevant. Imagine being forced to march for days on end, chained to strangers, with no idea where you're going or if you'll even survive the journey. It's like the worst kind of forced marathon, but the finish line is unknown, and the prize is just more misery. Hunger's gnawing ache. Hunger is your constant gnawing companion. Rations, when they are given at all, are meager and often barely edible. A handful of dry, stale millet, a few pieces of tough, uncooked root vegetable, or a small portion of questionable gruel. This is your sustenance for a day of brutal physical exertion. Your body, already weakened by the rigors of battle and the trauma of capture, quickly begins to waste away. Every muscle aches. Your stomach cramps with emptiness, and your mind struggles to focus beyond the overwhelming craving for food. You learn to eat anything offered, however unappetizing, simply to survive. It's a common historical fact that ancient prisoners of war often suffered severe malnutrition and starvation during forced marches in captivity. The academic debate often explores the logistical challenges of feeding large numbers of prisoners during ancient warfare. Historians debate whether starvation was a deliberate tactic to weaken the captives, or simply an inevitable consequence of the difficulties in provisioning large armies and their prisoners in the field. For you, the prisoner, the distinction doesn't matter. The hunger is real, a constant, debilitating torment that slowly erodes your strength and your will. An interesting, less commonly known detail about these marches of misery involved the deliberate psychological torment through forced display. Captives were often paraded through conquered villages or towns, their humiliation serving as a vivid demonstration of the victor's power and a warning to any potential resistance. You might be forced to march through jeering crowds, subjected to their scorn and ridicule, your former identity as a soldier completely stripped away. This psychological degradation, combined with the physical suffering, was designed to break your spirit even before you reached the camps. Imagine being put on public display, your personal dignity stripped away, every day of your painful journey. Despair's heavy cloak. Despair hangs over the column of captives like a heavy, suffocating cloak. You see it in the vacant eyes of your comrades, in their silent endurance, in the way they stumble and fall. There is no hope of rescue, no promise of mercy. Each grueling mile brings you further from your home, further from any chance of freedom. The future is an unimaginable blank, filled only with dread. You might try to cling to small memories, a loved one's face, a comforting place, but even these can feel like cruel torments in the face of your current reality. The physical toll is immense. Your feet, without proper footwear, quickly become blistered and raw. The constant walking on uneven terrain, sometimes for days without rest, pushes your body to its absolute limits. Exhaustion is profound, a heavy weight that threatens to drag you down with every step. Men collapse from fatigue, from illness, from sheer despair. Those who fall and cannot rise are often left behind, a chilling reminder of your own precarious existence, or are summarily executed by the guards, their bodies left by the roadside. You learn to ignore your own pain, to push past the screaming protests of your muscles, driven by the primal instinct for survival. Water is a precious, scarce commodity. You might go for hours, even a full day, without a single sip, your throat raw, your lips cracked and bleeding from the sun and dust. When you do encounter a stream or a well, the water is often muddy, contaminated, or barely enough to quench your overwhelming thirst. This constant dehydration weakens you further, dulling your mind and making you even more susceptible to collapse or illness. The unforgiving guards. Your guards are relentless. They drive you forward with whips, with spears, with the constant threat of violence. They show no pity for the weak, no mercy for the fallen. Their language, harsh and guttural, is a constant reminder of your subjugation. They are simply following orders, efficiently moving their human cargo to its grim destination. You learn to anticipate their commands, to obey instantly, anything to avoid their attention and their brutal enforcement of discipline. It's like being forced to run a marathon by drill sergeants who are explicitly told not to care if you live or die. The nights offer little respite. You are herded into temporary holding areas, often just open fields or rough enclosures. With no shelter from the elements, you huddle together for warmth, a mass of shivering bodies, your shackles clanging with every movement. Sleep is fitful and shallow, haunted by nightmares of battle and the constant fear of what tomorrow will bring. You might share hushed whispers with your comrades, exchanging fragmented memories of home, or offering quiet words of encouragement, tiny sparks of humanity in an ocean of despair. As the days blur into an indistinguishable continuum of suffering, you become acutely aware of the vast distances you are covering, the endless miles separating you from everything you once knew. Each step is a step further into the unknown, deeper into enemy territory, deeper into the chilling reality of your captivity. The landscape changes, from plains to mountains, from forests to barren lands, but your suffering remains constant, a relentless companion on this march of misery. As the sun sets, casting long, stark shadows across the dusty road, you stumble forward, one foot in front of the other, your body a mere shell driven by the will to survive. The lowing of the cattle, the distant cries of wild animals, the sounds of your captors, these are the only soundtrack to your profound despair. You've endured another grueling day on the march of misery, your spirit slowly eroding, your body aching, and your future an unbearable, terrifying blank. And as the dark hours of the night creep in, you hope for the oblivion of sleep, knowing that tomorrow, the endless, agonizing journey will continue. The agonizing march has finally ended, but your suffering is far from over. You've reached your grim destination, a prisoner of war in ancient China, now confined to one of the numerous camps of cruelty. This isn't a temporary holding area. It's a long-term prison, a place where harsh, unsanitary conditions and the constant threat of violence define every waking moment of your existence. You are herded, along with hundreds, perhaps even thousands, of other captives, into a sprawling, hastily constructed compound. The walls are rough timber, perhaps topped with sharpened stakes, and guarded by watchtowers manned by armed sentries. The ground inside is hard-packed earth, perpetually muddy or dusty depending on the weather, and littered with refuse. This is your new home, a vast open-air cage where privacy is a forgotten luxury and comfort is an alien concept. Imagine being moved from one torture chamber to another, and this new one is just bigger, smellier, and even more crowded. Your sense of dread deepens. Unsanitary hell. The most immediate assault is on your senses. The unsanitary conditions are appalling. Human waste, food scraps, and general refuse litter the ground, creating a breeding ground for disease and attracting swarms of flies. The air is thick with the pervasive stench of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, and human excrement, a sickening miasma that clings to everything. There are no latrines, or only rudimentary, overflowing pits. You are forced to relieve yourself where you stand or sleep, contributing to the ever-present filth. Water, if available, is often drawn from contaminated sources, murky and unsafe. This relentless exposure to filth is a common historical fact for ancient prisoner of war camps, where disease often claimed more lives than battle itself. The academic debate often explores the role of disease in ancient warfare, and its impact on prisoner populations. Historians argue that poor sanitation and lack of understanding of germ theory meant that epidemics were inevitable in crowded camps, often used as a deliberate or unintentional form of biological warfare against captives. For you, the prisoner, it means living in a constant state of vulnerability, knowing that unseen enemies, in the form of disease, are far more likely to kill you than any guard's blade. You are given no shelter beyond perhaps a few rudimentary lean-tos or communal sheds, offering little protection from the elements. In summer, the sun beats down relentlessly, turning the camp into a suffocating oven, leading to rampant heat stroke and dehydration. In winter, the biting winds and frigid temperatures offer no escape, leading to widespread hypothermia, frostbite, and respiratory illnesses. Rain turns the ground into a muddy quagmire, making sleep impossible and adding to the misery. You huddle with your fellow captives for warmth, a mass of shivering, desperate bodies, sharing body heat and the pervasive stench of despair. The constant threat of violence. The constant threat of violence is ever present. The guards, often hardened soldiers, are brutal and unforgiving. They patrol the camp relentlessly, their eyes sharp, their weapons at the ready. Any infraction, however minor, a whispered conversation, a slow response to a command, a perceived act of defiance, is met with immediate and savage punishment. Beatings with sticks, whips, or the butt of a spear are common, often inflicted publicly to instill fear and maintain absolute control. You witness these brutal acts daily, the screams of your comrades a chilling reminder of your precarious existence. You learn to keep your head down, to appear invisible, to obey every command instantly, anything to avoid attracting their attention. It's like living under constant surveillance from the most sadistic prison guards imaginable, with no recourse, no appeals, and no hope of leniency. An interesting, less commonly known detail about these camps involved the deliberate psychological torment through arbitrary acts of cruelty. Guards might inflict random acts of violence, singling out individuals for beatings or humiliation, not for any specific transgression, but simply to demonstrate their absolute power and to keep the prisoners in a perpetual state of terror. This unpredictability was designed to break the prisoner's will, making them constantly fearful and less likely to organize resistance. Imagine trying to adapt to a system where kindness is never a given, and cruelty can strike at any moment, without reason. Food rations, as on the march, remain utterly meager. A small bowl of gruel, a few handfuls of millet, barely enough to sustain life. Your body, already emaciated from the grueling march, continues to waste away. You are perpetually hungry, your stomach cramping, your mind dulled by malnutrition. Water is scarce and often contaminated, contributing to the rampant dysentery that sweeps through the camp. You see your comrades sicken and die, their bodies wasting away, often left for hours or even days before being unceremoniously removed. Despair's deepening embrace. Despair hangs heavy in the air, a palpable entity. Hope, that dangerous emotion, quickly fades in this environment of constant suffering and deprivation. You are stripped of your identity, your dignity, and your future. There is no news from home, no word of family, no promise of release. Your days are an endless, monotonous cycle of hunger, thirst, and the fear of violence. You exist in a state of profound hopelessness, your spirit slowly eroding under the relentless pressure. Sleep offers little respite. You lie on the hard, cold ground, surrounded by hundreds of other restless, suffering bodies. The sounds of the camp, the distant shouts of guards, the groans of the sick, the restless stirrings of your comrades, penetrate your fitful slumber. Nightmares of battle, of capture, and of the brutal reality of the camp haunt your dreams, offering no true escape. The internal dynamics among the prisoners are complex. While a shared sense of misery can foster a fragile solidarity, the extreme conditions can also lead to desperate acts. Men might steal from each other, fight over meager scraps of food, or betray comrades for a moment of favor from the guards. Trust is a dangerous commodity, and suspicion is a constant companion. You learn to rely only on yourself, and perhaps a very small, trusted few. As the sun sets, casting long shadows over the crowded, filthy compound, you find yourself huddled with your fellow captives. The air is cold, but the stench is pervasive, clinging to your clothes, your skin, your very being. You've endured another day in the camp of cruelty, your body aching, your spirit dulled, your future an unbearable, terrifying blank. And as the dark hours of the night creep in, you hope for the oblivion of sleep, knowing that tomorrow, the constant threat of violence and the grim reality of your prison will continue. A chilling testament to the brutal existence of a prisoner of war in ancient China. You've survived the brutal march and the unspeakable conditions of the prisoner of war camp. But your existence as a captive in ancient China isn't one of idle confinement. Instead, your captors will extract every ounce of your strength, leveraging your defeated body for their own means. Tonight, we delve into the crushing reality of forced labor's relentless grind, enduring endless backbreaking work that fuels the enemy's war machine. You are roused before dawn, not by the sun, which you rarely see, but by the insistent shouts of overseers and the crack of whips. Your body aches, every muscle protesting, but there's no reprieve. You are part of a vast workforce, a faceless cog in a brutal machine, engaged in tasks designed for maximum exertion and minimal human consideration. This isn't just about punishment, it's about pure, unadulterated exploitation, turning defeated soldiers into engines of production for your captors. Imagine your worst nightmare of a construction job, except you're a prisoner, and the only motivation is avoiding physical pain. It makes your most demanding work project seem like a leisurely stroll through a park, building the enemy's empire. Your labor might involve monumental construction projects. Perhaps you are forced to build or repair fortifications, digging vast trenches, hauling enormous stones for walls, or constructing siege ramps. The earth is hard, the sun relentless, and the tools primitive. You dig with crude shovels, carry heavy loads on your shoulders, and pound stakes into the ground with heavy mallets, your hands blistering and bleeding. The dust chokes you, the sweat stings your eyes, and your muscles scream in protest, but the work never stops. Each fortification you build is a testament to your enemy's growing power and a symbol of your own subjugation. It's a common historical fact that large-scale infrastructure projects in ancient China, especially fortifications, often relied heavily on forced labor, including prisoners of war and condemned criminals. The academic debate often explores the efficiency of forced labor versus free labor in ancient economies. Historians analyze whether the brutality of forced labor truly translated into higher productivity, or if the constant need for oversight, the lower morale, and the high mortality rates ultimately made it less efficient than motivating free workers. For you, the prisoner, this isn't a theoretical discussion. It's the daily reality of being pushed past your physical limits, knowing that your exhausted body is merely a tool in the hands of your oppressors. You might be assigned to mining operations, an even more brutal fate. Chained and driven by ruthless overseers, you descend into dark, claustrophobic tunnels, hacking away at ore veins with crude picks and chisels. The air is thick with dust, the heat suffocating, and the constant threat of cave-ins or gas pockets is ever present. This work is notoriously dangerous and often lethal, leading to a slow, agonizing death from lung disease or accidental collapse. Your body, already weakened by malnutrition, is pushed to its absolute breaking point in these underground hells. Imagine being a miner with no safety equipment, no ventilation, and absolutely no choice but to keep digging. Supplying the war machine. Another common form of forced labor is logistical support for the army. You might be forced to transport vast quantities of supplies, sacks of grain, bundles of weapons, or heavy military equipment. This often involves marching for days, carrying backbreaking loads, or pulling heavy carts across difficult terrain. You are essentially a pack animal, your body replacing the need for oxen or horses, valued only for your ability to move goods from one point to another. The sheer monotony and physical strain of this work are overwhelming, draining every ounce of your strength. An interesting, less commonly known detail about forced labor involved the use of prisoners as human shields or expendable advance parties. In some desperate military situations, or as a form of extreme punishment, prisoners of war might be forced to march ahead of the main army during a siege, clearing minefields, or even as human waves to draw out enemy fire. While rare, this horrifying possibility hung over every prisoner, a chilling reminder of their utter disposability in the eyes of their captors. Imagine being told to walk into a potentially booby-trapped area, knowing you're just there to explode. It's a level of terror that defies imagination. The work is relentless, often stretching from before dawn until long after dusk. There are no breaks, no rest periods beyond the bare minimum required to keep you alive. Overseers, armed with whips and clubs, constantly patrol, their harsh shouts and brutal punishments ensuring continuous exertion. Any sign of weakness, any lagging step, is met with immediate and savage retribution. You learn to suppress your pain, to hide your exhaustion, to become an anonymous, tireless machine, working until your muscles scream and your mind goes numb. The psychological toll of enslavement. The psychological toll of this forced labor is immense. You are stripped of your autonomy, your dignity, and your very humanity. Every day is a repetition of the same brutal tasks, the same relentless demands, the same pervasive fear. Your thoughts become singularly focused on survival, the next meal, the next sip of water, the next moment of rest. The dreams of home, of freedom, fade into distant, agonizing memories, replaced by the crushing reality of your present suffering. You might be forced to work alongside other prisoners from different states or even common criminals. While a shared sense of misery can foster a fragile solidarity, the extreme conditions also breed competition and suspicion. Men might steal from each other, betray comrades for a small favor, or fight over meager scraps. Trust is a dangerous commodity, and you learn to rely only on yourself and perhaps a very small, trusted few. As the sun sets, painting the harsh landscape in hues of orange and purple, you stumble back to the camp, your body aching, your clothes torn and grimy. The dust from the day's labor coats your skin, your hair, your very lungs. You collapse onto the hard ground, your spirit dull, your mind focused only on the brief oblivion of sleep. You have endured another day of forced labor's relentless grind, your body a testament to endless suffering, your future an unbearable, terrifying blank. And as the dark hours of the night creep in, you hope for the oblivion of sleep, knowing that tomorrow the backbreaking work will continue, a chilling testament to the brutal existence of a prisoner of war in ancient China. You've pushed your body to its absolute limits under the relentless demands of forced labor, enduring the physical torment of construction or mining. But in the ancient Chinese prisoner of war camp, the struggle for survival isn't just about the work itself. It's a daily, desperate battle against the gnawing emptiness within you and the insidious enemies that thrive in filth. Tonight, we plunge into the harrowing reality of food, filth, and fading hope, exploring the meager rations, the rampant disease, and the profound psychological toll of deprivation. You shuffle into the communal feeding area, your body trembling with exhaustion, your stomach a hollow, aching void. The air here is a sickening blend of stale sweat, unwashed bodies, and the faint, putrid smell of something vaguely edible being cooked over a smoky fire. Your meal is a small, rough-hewn wooden bowl, often chipped and dirty, containing a meager portion of gruel or millet. It's thin, watery, and barely warm, with little to no taste beyond a faint grittiness. There are no vegetables, no meat, no protein beyond a few meager grains. This is your sustenance for a full day of backbreaking labor, barely enough to keep you from immediate collapse. Imagine trying to run a marathon every day on a diet that wouldn't even satisfy a bird. Your energy reserves are perpetually depleted. The pervasive filth. The academic debate often focuses on the direct correlation between sanitation and disease in ancient captivity. Historians emphasize that while the specific mechanisms of germ transmission weren't understood, the sheer accumulation of filth in these crowded camps was a primary driver of sickness and death. The ground you walk on, the air you breathe, the very bowls you eat from all are permeated with various forms of human and animal waste, food scraps, and general refuse. There are no proper latrines, only communal pits that quickly overflow, attracting swarms of buzzing flies that carry disease from one suffering body to another. You are forced to live in and around your own excrement, a dehumanizing reality that constantly exposes you to a multitude of pathogens. It's a common historical fact that epidemics like dysentery and typhus ravaged ancient prisoner of war camps due to appalling sanitary conditions. An interesting, less commonly known detail about the filth in ancient camps was the specific problem of lice and fleas. These tiny parasites thrived in the crowded, unwashed conditions, causing incessant itching and acting as vectors for diseases like typhus carried by body lice. Prisoners would spend precious moments trying to pick lice from their hair and clothes, a futile battle against an overwhelming infestation that contributed significantly to discomfort and disease transmission. Imagine being so itchy, so constantly crawling with parasites, that sleep is almost impossible. And every scratch is a potential infection. Water, when available, is often from contaminated sources, murky and teeming with unseen dangers. You drink it, not because it's clean, but because the alternative is death by dehydration. This contaminated water contributes directly to the rampant spread of dysentery, a horrifying intestinal illness that causes severe diarrhea, dehydration, and rapid wasting. You watch helplessly as your comrades succumb, their bodies racked with cramps, their strength draining away with every agonizing evacuation. The smell of dysentery, acidic, putrid, and unmistakable, permeates the air, adding another layer to the camp's sickening miasma. The relentless march of disease beyond dysentery, other diseases are ever present. Typhus, carried by those same ubiquitous lice, brings on a high fever, delirium, and eventually exhaustion and death. Scurvy, caused by the complete lack of fresh fruits and vegetables in your diet, leads to bleeding gums, loose teeth, open sores, and profound weakness. Malnutrition, a constant companion, weakens your immune system, making you vulnerable to every cough, every fever, every minor infection. A simple cold can quickly turn into pneumonia, a fatal complication for an already weakened body. You live in a state of perpetual fear, knowing that the next cough from a comrade, the next unexplained fever, could be the beginning of the end for you. Medical care is non-existent. There are no doctors, no medicines, no soothing remedies. You are left to suffer, to fight off disease with nothing but your own failing immune system and sheer willpower. Those who sicken too much, who become too weak to work, are often left to die, or summarily executed, deemed no longer useful. You see the bodies, emaciated and ravaged by illness, being dragged away, a grim reminder of your own precarious position. It's like being in a medical triage unit during a plague, but you're just left to rot if you're not useful. The psychological toll of deprivation is immense. Constant hunger, thirst, and exposure to filth wear away at your spirit, eroding hope and fostering a deep sense of despair. Your mind becomes singularly focused on survival, on the most basic physical needs, dreams of home, of family, of a past life of dignity, fade into distant, agonizing memories, replaced by the grim reality of your suffering. You become detached, apathetic, your emotions dulled by the overwhelming burden of your existence, fading hope, enduring despair. Sleep offers little respite. You lie on the hard, cold, often damp ground, surrounded by hundreds of other restless, suffering bodies. The sounds of the camp, the distant shouts of guards, the groans of the sick, the restless stirrings of your comrades, the incessant buzzing of flies penetrate your fitful slumber. Nightmares of battle, of capture, and of the brutal reality of the camp haunt your dreams, offering no true escape from your waking torment. The constant exposure to death, to suffering, to the complete absence of human kindness strips away your former identity. You are reduced to a biological imperative to eat, to drink, to survive another day. The hope that once flickered within you begins to fade, a tiny ember extinguished by the relentless wind of cruelty and deprivation. You become a shadow of your former self, your spirit slowly consumed by the pervasive despair. As the sun sets, casting long shadows over the crowded, filthy compound, you find yourself huddled with your fellow captives. The air is cold, but the stench is pervasive, clinging to your clothes, your skin, your very being. You've endured another day in the camp, your body aching, your spirit dulled, your future an unbearable, terrifying blank. And as the dark hours of the night creep in, you hope for the oblivion of sleep, knowing that tomorrow, the constant battle against hunger, filth, and disease will continue, a chilling testament to the brutal existence of a prisoner of war in ancient China. You've endured the gnawing hunger, the pervasive filth, and the relentless march of disease within the ancient Chinese prisoner of war camp. But beyond the physical deprivations, your captors wield another, more insidious weapon, the calculated assault on your mind and spirit. Tonight, we delve into the chilling reality of interrogation's cold embrace, exploring the cunning and brutal methods used to extract information, break your will, and transform you from a defiant soldier into a compliant, broken tool. You are dragged from your meager sleeping spot, perhaps in the dead of night, by a pair of grim-faced guards. The abruptness of it, the sudden shift from restless sleep to terrifying wakefulness, is designed to disorient you. You are led through dimly lit corridors, the silence broken only by the shuffle of your feet and the clang of your chains. The air grows colder, heavier, until you are pushed into a small, dark chamber. This isn't just a room, it's an interrogation chamber, a place where minds are broken and wills are crushed. Imagine being pulled into a windowless room, knowing that your only escape is to give up your deepest secrets. Your heart pounds in your chest, a frantic drum against the chilling silence. The art of psychological warfare. Your interrogators are not always brutal from the outset. They are often cunning, patient, and deeply understanding of human psychology. They might begin with a seemingly benevolent approach, offering you food, clean water, or even a moment of warmth by a brazier, luxuries you haven't experienced in weeks. They might speak in a softer tone, offering false promises of better treatment, an early release, or even a position of minor authority if you cooperate. They might feign sympathy for your suffering, trying to establish a false sense of trust. This subtle psychological manipulation is designed to lower your guard, to make you desperate for relief, to create a chink in your armor of defiance. It's a common historical fact that ancient interrogators often combined psychological tactics with physical torture. Understanding the power of breaking a prisoner's will, the academic debate often explores the effectiveness of various interrogation techniques throughout history. Historians debate whether brutal physical torture was truly effective in gaining reliable information, or if it primarily elicited false confessions and broken spirits. They also analyze how psychological methods, like sensory deprivation or sustained questioning, could be equally, if not more, devastating. For you, the prisoner, you are caught in the middle of this grim historical experiment, subjected to methods designed to strip away your identity and force your compliance. An interesting, less commonly known detail about ancient Chinese interrogation involved the use of sleep deprivation over extended periods. Interrogators might keep a prisoner awake for days, constantly questioning, prodding, and offering false hopes, pushing the mind to the brink of delirium. This cumulative exhaustion would make a prisoner incredibly vulnerable, eroding their ability to resist or think clearly, often leading to involuntary confessions or the breaking of their will. Imagine being so utterly exhausted that your mind is playing tricks on you, and every question feels like a sledgehammer. It's a terrifying form of torment. Physical torment's cruel touch. But when psychological tactics fail, or when immediate information is required, the true brutality begins. Physical torture is common. A horrifying array of methods designed to inflict extreme pain without necessarily causing death, at least not immediately. You might be subjected to beatings with sticks or whips, the blows delivered with chilling precision to sensitive areas of the body. Your limbs might be twisted or bound in excruciating positions, stretching tendons and dislocating joints. Water torture, the slow drip on your forehead, or forced ingestion of vast quantities of water, could push your mind to the brink. Sensory deprivation, being confined in a completely dark and silent chamber for days, could induce hallucinations and profound psychological distress. The interrogators focus on extracting specific information, the strength of your army, the location of your hidden supplies, the weaknesses of your fortifications, the names of your commanders, or the plans of your generals. They might display captured maps, or speak of knowledge they already possess, trying to trick you into confirming details or revealing more than you intend. They analyze your reactions, your subtle shifts in expression, looking for any sign of weakness or deception. This is a battle of wills, a desperate struggle to protect your secrets against an onslaught of pain and psychological manipulation. You might be forced to witness the torture of your comrades, their screams echoing in the darkness, a chilling demonstration of what awaits you if you resist. This vicarious suffering, combined with the profound guilt of knowing your silence is causing another's pain, is a powerful weapon in their arsenal. The threat of harm to your distant family, even if just a bluff, can also be a potent psychological torment, pushing you to break. It's like being forced to watch a loved one being tortured, and the price of their release is your deepest, most dangerous secrets. The moral dilemma is agonizing. Breaking the will. The goal is not always just information. It's also about breaking your will. They want to transform you, to strip away your defiance, your loyalty to your own side, and your very identity. They want you to become compliant, a broken shell of your former self, capable only of obedience. This long, arduous process of physical and psychological torment grinds away at your spirit, eroding your resilience, leaving you emotionally shattered. As the interrogation continues, hours blurring into an indistinguishable continuum of pain and questioning, you feel your resistance weakening, your mind clouds, your thoughts become fragmented, and the line between truth and fabricated confession begins to blur. You might tell them what they want to hear, whether it's true or false, simply to make the torment stop, to find a moment of blessed relief. This self-betrayal is a profound, horrifying realization, leaving you with a deep sense of shame and worthlessness. As you are finally dragged back to your camp, perhaps barely conscious, your body a canvas of bruises and aches, you feel the cold embrace of despair. The physical pain will eventually subside, but the psychological scars from the interrogation's cold embrace will linger, a permanent reminder of your broken will and the terrifying power your captors wielded over your mind. And as you collapse onto the hard, cold ground, hoping for oblivion, you know that the whispers of the interrogation chamber will haunt your dreams, a chilling testament to the brutal existence of a prisoner of war in ancient China. You've endured the hunger, the filth, the forced labor, and the brutality of interrogation. Every moment in the ancient Chinese prisoner of war camp is a battle for survival. But among all the horrors, none quite matches the cold dread of realizing that your life is not your own. It is merely a plaything in your captor's hands. Tonight, we confront the specter of execution, witnessing the arbitrary nature of life and death, where your fate hinges on a captor's whim. You are standing in the camp, part of a large group of prisoners, surrounded by spear-wielding soldiers and grim-faced overseers. There's no bird song, no rustle of leaves, only a chilling silence, broken by the wind whistling through the rough timber stakes of the camp fence. In these tense moments, the silence is more terrifying than any scream, because you know, from the looks in the soldiers' eyes, from the hushed stillness of your comrades, that this is a public execution. The arbitrary hand of fate. There is no trial, no formal accusation, no chance for defense. A few prisoners are chosen seemingly at random, or perhaps for a reason you cannot comprehend. A defiant look, a misunderstood gesture, or simply an arbitrary selection to make an example. Their names are called out, or they are roughly dragged from the ranks. Chaos erupts for a moment, quickly suppressed by the lash and spear butt of the guards. You witness the terror on the faces of your fellow captives, the sheer, agonizing despair as they realize their fate. The execution itself is brutal and public. Perhaps it's decapitation, the headless body of the prisoner slumping to the ground, blood staining the dust. Or perhaps it's hanging, the lifeless form swaying chillingly in the wind. In some cases, the punishment might be even more horrific, such as dismemberment or impalement, designed to inflict maximum pain and display the captor's absolute power. The smell of fresh blood, metallic and sickening, mingles with the odors of fear and urine filling the air. It is a common historical fact that mass executions of prisoners of war and the use of brutal punishments as a deterrent were prevalent in ancient Chinese warfare. The academic debate often focuses on the effectiveness of extreme violence in maintaining order within prisoner camps. Historians debate whether public executions truly broke the will of resistance, or if they merely deepened resentment and a desire for revenge. For you, the prisoner, you are part of this grim social experiment, forced to witness the horrors to maintain your own will to survive. The captor's morbid glee. The brutality of your captors is often amplified by their indifference or even morbid enjoyment. The faces of the guards remain impassive, or sometimes a chilling, unsettling smirk plays on their lips as they carry out the sentences. You feel as if you are no longer a person, but an object, a pawn in a cruel game of power and domination. This spectacle, repeated enough times, can numb your spirit, making you increasingly apathetic to your own life and the suffering around you. An interesting, less commonly known detail about these executions is that sometimes prisoners might be offered the chance to commit ritual suicide as a final act of honor, rather than endure the indignity of a public execution. While rare and typically reserved for higher-ranking officers, this choice was still a form of control. taking away even the option of how they died. Imagine being given a choice between public execution or being forced to end your own life. Both options are terrifying in their own way. The purpose of these executions is dual. First, they serve as a form of deterrence. By witnessing the fate of others, you are constantly reminded of your own helplessness and the consequences of any disobedience. Second, they are designed to break your will to resist. By seeing the destruction of your comrades, any hope of rescue or solidarity is meant to vanish. Each execution is a hammer blow to your spirit, designed to make you utterly submissive. The erosion of hope. You turn away, your eyes squeezed shut, trying not to see, not to hear, not to smell. But the scene is burned into your mind, and the scent of fresh blood seems to cling to your clothes. You feel the absence of your comrades who were just there, the chilling void they leave in your ranks. Fear gnaws at you, paralyzing any rebellious thought. Life in the camp becomes a relentless flight from death. Every day, you battle hunger, thirst, and exhaustion, but above all, the pervasive dread of tomorrow, when perhaps you will be the next one dragged from the ranks. The arbitrary nature of the executions adds to your anxiety. There are no rules, no reasons. You could be chosen for an insignificant reason, or for no reason at all. Your life hangs on the capricious whim of your captor, a deadly and merciless deity. As night descends, bringing a pall of gloom over the camp, you huddle alone, trying to find solace in sleep. But the specter of execution haunts you, a constant reminder of the grim fate of your fellow captives. Their screams still echo in your ears, and the scent of blood seems to linger in the cold air. You are a prisoner of war in ancient China, your life dictated by the brutal whims of your tormentors, and your fate hangs like a perpetual shadow, haunted by the arbitrary nature of life and death. You've endured the gnawing hunger, the pervasive filth, the forced labor, the brutality of interrogation, and the chilling specter of public execution. Every day in the ancient Chinese prisoner of war camp is a battle for survival. But in this abyss of despair, sometimes a tiny, flickering ember of hope appears, the distant, often cruel, promise of ransom. Tonight, we understand the fleeting chance of release, often dependent on factors far beyond your control, like family wealth, political shifts, or the capricious whims of your captors. You hear the whispered rumors from new arrivals or from the guards themselves. A few fortunate captives, usually those of higher rank or noble birth, have been singled out. They are being questioned not about military secrets, but about their family's wealth, their connections, their ability to provide a ransom. Your heart clenches with a mixture of desperate hope and bitter envy. For the vast majority of prisoners, release is an impossible dream, but for a select few, perhaps yourself if you were once a man of means, a sliver of possibility exists. Imagine you're stuck in the worst customer service queue of your life, and suddenly, someone cuts to the front because they have a special fast pass made of gold. You'd be both amazed and utterly furious. The economics of captivity. The concept of ransom in ancient China was largely transactional. You, the prisoner, are not a human being with rights, but a valuable asset, a commodity whose freedom can be bought. The amount of the ransom would depend on your perceived importance. A high-ranking officer would fetch a princely sum, perhaps even land or resources. A wealthy merchant, his weight in gold. Even a skilled artisan might be ransomed for his craft, his specialized knowledge proving more valuable than mere silver. For the common soldier, however, there was often no ransom to be paid, rendering them expendable for forced labor or execution. This economic reality is a common historical fact in ancient warfare across many cultures. Prisoners of war were often valuable commodities used to extract resources or wealth from the defeated side. The academic debate often explores the ethical implications of ransom practices. Historians debate whether it offered a rare, merciful alternative to execution or enslavement, or if it simply reinforced social hierarchies and the commodification of human life. They also analyze how the existence of ransom practices influenced military strategy, with commanders sometimes targeting wealthy individuals specifically for capture, viewing them as living treasure. For you, the prisoner. This is not a theoretical discussion. It's the terrifying reality that your life's value is now measured in coin and political leverage, a cold calculation by your captors. The negotiations for ransom are a protracted, complex process. Your family, if they are fortunate enough and wealthy enough, will have to make contact with your captors' high-ranking officials. Messengers will travel back and forth between the camp and your homeland, exchanging conditions, haggling over terms. It could take months or even years for an agreement to be reached, if it ever is. During this time, you remain a prisoner, still enduring the brutal conditions, bound by a fragile thread of hope. Promises can be broken, negotiations can collapse, or a sudden shift in political fortunes could render your value worthless, leaving you to languish in captivity even after hope had briefly flared. It's like a very, very slow-motion bidding war for your freedom, and you're the item on the auction block with no say in the price. Fleeting hope, crushing despair. You might witness another prisoner, a man who seemed destined for release, suddenly return to the ranks of forced labor, his face etched with a deeper despair than before. His ransom negotiations failed. The emotional roller coaster of hope and despair is almost as tormenting as the physical deprivations. When a glimmer of hope appears, it illuminates your suffering with agonizing clarity, making the subsequent crushing disappointment even harder to bear. You learn to guard your heart, to keep your hopes muted, protecting yourself from the inevitable heartbreak that often accompanies these fleeting promises. An interesting, less commonly known detail about ransom practices in ancient China involved the concept of substitute prisoners. In some cases, if the original captive was too valuable or the negotiations too prolonged, a family might offer a less important family member or a large sum of gold in place of the original prisoner. This was a desperate gamble, but it occasionally offered a pathway to freedom for the primary captive, albeit at the tragic cost of someone else's liberty. Imagine your family sending your annoying cousin to take your place in a brutal POW camp. You'd be free, but forever haunted by that awkward family dinner. The captors, knowing the psychological power of hope, sometimes deliberately string along negotiations, offering false promises of release to extract more information, to keep prisoners compliant, or simply to torment them. They might send misleading messages or delay responses, maintaining an agonizing uncertainty. This psychological manipulation is a cruel refinement of their brutal methods, turning your deepest desires against you. The scars of uncertainty. Even if a ransom is successfully negotiated, the journey back to freedom is fraught with peril. You might be handed over in a desolate borderland, far from any friendly territory, vulnerable to bandits or opportunistic slave traders. Your body, emaciated and scarred, might struggle to make the long journey home, and once home, you might find yourself a stranger in your own land, traumatized by the experience, unable to fully reintegrate into a normal life. The scars of captivity, both physical and psychological, often linger long after the chains are removed. For those who are never ransomed, the promise of ransom only deepens their despair. They are left with the bitter knowledge that their lives are deemed worthless by their own side, or that their families lack the means or the connections to buy their freedom. This abandonment, this realization of their utter dispensability, is a crushing blow to their spirit, leading to a profound sense of hopelessness that can be harder to bear than any physical torment. You watch as a comrade, a man who seemed destined for release, is suddenly taken away. Is it for release or for execution? The uncertainty gnaws at you. The guards' faces remain impassive, revealing nothing. Later, you might hear a rumor or simply never see him again. The arbitrary nature of these decisions, the profound lack of control over your own fate, is the ultimate terror of a prisoner's life. As night descends, cloaking the camp in shadow, you huddle with your fellow captives. The air is cold, but the internal chill of uncertainty is colder. You think of home, of family, and the faint, almost painful, possibility of ransom. You are a prisoner of war in ancient China, your life held hostage by the cruel promise of freedom, forever bound by the arbitrary nature of fate, hoping against hope that one day your name might be called, and your chains might finally fall away. You've survived the hell of captivity, the hunger, the filth, the forced labor, the interrogation, and the specter of execution. You even tasted the bitter tang of a fleeting hope for ransom. But even if you were fortunate enough to be released, or if you somehow simply outlived your captors, the fight isn't over. Tonight, we confront the scars of survival, glimpsing the physical and psychological wounds that linger long after release, if it ever comes. You stand somewhere on the borderlands, a desolate, indeterminate stretch of land. Perhaps you've been handed over as part of a prisoner exchange, or maybe a lucky few have been ransomed. You are no longer in chains, but the newfound freedom feels alien, almost terrifying. Your body, once a trained instrument of war, is now a gaunt wreck, a living testament to what you've endured. You look down at your hands. They are no longer a soldier's hands, but a slave laborer's, calloused, gnarled, and perhaps permanently deformed. Imagine you've just escaped a prolonged nightmare, but your body and mind are still very much trapped within it. The physical scars. Your physical scars are numerous and profound. Malnutrition has wasted your body, leaving you skeletal, your muscles atrophied. Your skin is pallid, your eyes sunken, and your hair is brittle and sparse. You might suffer from chronic digestive issues, your stomach unable to handle anything beyond the meager gruel you've subsisted on for so long. Your teeth might be loose or missing due to scurvy, and your gums perpetually sore. Every movement causes aches in your joints. Every breath a subtle burning in your lungs from the dust and poor air quality of the camps or mines. You are a walking testament to deprivation. The academic debate often explores the long-term health outcomes of ancient POWs who survived captivity. Historians analyze skeletal remains and textual accounts to understand the prevalence of chronic diseases, malnutrition-related conditions, and musculoskeletal deformities among former captives. They argue that even survivors often faced significantly shortened lifespans and debilitating health issues for the rest of their lives. For you, the former prisoner, this isn't an academic study. It's your daily reality, a body that constantly reminds you of the hell you endured. An interesting, less commonly known physical scar could be shackling marks or chain marks. The heavy iron chains and crude ropes that bound your wrists and ankles would have left permanent indentations, deep grooves, or even discolored skin where the metal constantly chafed and dug in. These weren't just temporary bruises. They were permanent reminders of your bondage, visible symbols of your suffering that you could never truly hide, even under clothing. Imagine having indelible rings on your wrists and ankles, forever showing everyone you were once a prisoner. The invisible wounds of the mind. But perhaps more insidious than the physical wounds are the psychological scars. Your mind, too, has been a battlefield. You carry the trauma of constant fear, of seeing your comrades executed, of the physical and psychological brutality of interrogation. You might suffer from insomnia, haunted by nightmares of the camp, or find it impossible to truly rest. Your senses perpetually on high alert, still listening for the crack of a whip or the shout of a guard. The oppressive silence of freedom might feel more terrifying than the cacophony of the camp, leaving you feeling exposed and vulnerable. You might struggle with anxiety and paranoia. Trust, once a fundamental aspect of human connection, is now a luxury you can barely afford. You constantly scan your surroundings, interpret every glance, every sound, through the lens of suspicion, as if expecting another act of arbitrary cruelty. The world, once a place of relative order, now seems inherently dangerous and unpredictable. This hypervigilance, honed for survival in captivity, becomes a burden in freedom, making it difficult to relax or connect with others. The sense of dignity and self-worth may have been profoundly eroded. You were treated as less than human, as property, a disposable tool. This dehumanization leaves deep psychological wounds, making it difficult to reclaim your former identity as a respected soldier, a valued family member, or a contributing member of society. You might feel a lingering sense of shame, even though you were the victim, for simply having endured such degradation. It's like being brainwashed, where even after you're free, a part of you still believes the lies they told you about yourself. Reintegration's agonizing road. Reintegrating into your former life, if that is even possible, is an agonizing process. Your family, if they still exist and recognize you, may struggle to understand what you've been through. Your appearance, your quiet demeanor, your haunted eyes, they are profoundly different from the person who went to war. You might find it difficult to talk about your experiences or to connect with people who haven't endured similar horrors. The chasm between your past and present reality feels immense, leaving you feeling isolated even among your loved ones. You might struggle with decision-making, having lived for so long under a regime where every choice was made for you. The sudden return of autonomy can feel overwhelming, almost paralyzing. The simple acts of daily life, choosing what to eat, where to sleep, how to spend your time, become fraught with an unfamiliar weight. You are free, but you are not truly free from the shackles of your experience. The academic debate sometimes discusses the concept of moral injury in ancient warfare, the psychological wounds sustained from participating in or witnessing acts that violate one's moral compass. While primarily applied to soldiers, elements of it can apply to POWs, forced to endure extreme conditions or even betray comrades. Historians explore how these profound moral dilemmas and the constant exposure to atrocity could leave lasting internal scars beyond simple trauma. For you, the survivor, it means grappling with the knowledge of what you saw, what you endured, and perhaps even what you were forced to do to survive. As night falls, bringing a familiar quiet to your simple home, you find yourself restless. Your body aches with ghost pains, and your mind races with the echoes of the camp. You are no longer a prisoner, but the scars of survival are indelible, etched into your flesh and your spirit. The memory of hunger, filth, and fear might be distant now, but their impact is constant, a quiet hum in the background of your new life. And as you drift into a fitful sleep, the whispers of your past continue to haunt your dreams. A chilling testament to the brutal existence of a prisoner of war in ancient China and the profound, lasting cost of survival. You've survived, a testament to unimaginable resilience. The scars, both seen and unseen, are a constant reminder of your ordeal as a prisoner of war in ancient China. Your captors, your tormentors, the empires that waged those brutal wars, they are long gone, swallowed by the dust of centuries. Yet, the grim realities of your experience and the experiences of countless others like you continue to echo through the corridors of history. Tonight, We gently conclude our journey by reflecting on whispers from the past, understanding how these grim experiences shaped ancient warfare and the enduring spirit of survival. You sit, perhaps in the quiet solace of your later years, observing the world around you, the memory of the camp, the hunger, the cold, the fear. It's all still there, but perhaps softened by the passage of time. You recall the sheer scale of human suffering, the vast armies, and the countless lives irrevocably altered by the brutal conflicts of ancient China. The rules of war were different then, often non-existent for the vanquished. Prisoners were a resource, a tool, or an unfortunate statistic, their lives cheap in the grand tapestry of imperial ambition. This brutal utilitarian view of human life is a common historical fact in many ancient warfare contexts, where the concept of prisoners' rights was centuries away. The echoes of brutality. The academic debate often explores the long-term impact of such brutal prisoner policies on ancient societies. Historians debate whether extreme cruelty towards prisoners truly instilled fear and prevented future resistance, or if it simply fueled cycles of vengeance and prolonged conflicts. They also analyze how the constant threat of capture and forced labor shaped military strategy and the willingness of soldiers to fight to the death. For you, the survivor, it's a poignant reflection on a system that sought to break human spirit, yet, in many cases, found it unbreakable. The grim experiences of prisoners of war like you fundamentally shape the nature of ancient Chinese warfare. The knowledge that capture often meant forced labor, torture, or execution undoubtedly instilled a fierce desperation in soldiers, making battles even bloodier as men fought to the last breath rather than face such a fate. It influenced military tactics, encouraging swift and decisive victories to minimize prisoners, or leading to the wholesale slaughter of defeated armies to avoid the logistical burden of captives. Your suffering, in a strange, indirect way, became a part of the grand military strategies of the era. An interesting, less commonly known detail about the long-term impact of captivity is the subtle ways former prisoners, if they returned, might have carried and subtly spread new skills or ideas. While dehumanized, some captives possessed unique crafts or knowledge their captors sought to exploit. If they survived and returned, they might inadvertently bring back knowledge of enemy engineering, agricultural techniques, or even cultural practices, becoming unwitting conduits of cross-cultural exchange. Imagine, after all that suffering, you accidentally introduced a new way to plow fields to your homeland, a truly bizarre silver lining. Resilience in the face of despair. But beyond the brutal systems, your story, and the stories of countless others, are also a testament to the enduring spirit of survival. In the face of unimaginable deprivation, psychological torment, and the constant specter of death, the human will to live, however battered, often persisted. Small acts of solidarity among prisoners, the fleeting comfort of a shared memory, the stubborn refusal to give up. These were the quiet victories in a landscape of despair. You found ways to endure, to cling to a flicker of humanity, even when everything around you sought to strip it away. The whispers from your past speak of resilience, of the human capacity to adapt to the most extreme conditions. They speak of the body's incredible ability to withstand pain and deprivation, and the mind's desperate struggle to maintain a semblance of sanity when sanity seems impossible. These are not glorious tales of battlefield heroics, but quiet, profound testaments to the strength found in simply existing, day after brutal day. As the quiet hum of your fan fills the room, a gentle breeze in the darkness, you let your mind drift from the ancient camps and the distant battlefields. The chains have rusted, the whips have fallen silent, and the empires that defined your suffering are long gone. What remains is a profound understanding of the human condition, of the terrible things people can inflict, but also of the indomitable spirit that, even in the darkest of times, refuses to be extinguished. The echoes of your grim experiences, the whispers from the past, serve as a powerful reminder of the preciousness of freedom, the fragility of peace, and the enduring strength of the will to survive.